them to the same thing but different casing.
It's possible.
Sometimes that doesn't get picked up. You'd have to like do a git rename or something for that to work sometimes.
I avoid all Git command line statements. If I don't have a UI, I just don't want to do it.
I use pretty much the command line exclusively for actually committing and pulling and pushing and all that stuff. But
Why does that make you feel
branching.
smarter?
No, I know the commands and it's I don't know. I just know the commands and I whatever. But I do use Visual Studio for uh, comparing and looking at what's in change sets and stuff like that, and then resolving merge conflicts. Um, that stuff I do in there, but I don't do that. I don't do git pull and push usually. Well, if at work I do it that way, but if it's at home, sometimes I'll use that to sync to GitHub or whatever. Because if I'm doing master development directly and not branching and merging branches and stuff like that, then I'll use the tools in Visual Studio sometimes. So I don't know. It's habit, I guess.
I still don't understand why people do branching, but anyway, um, this thing I like madly underestimated this effort of migrating all this SQL stuff to Azure storage tables, um, in combination with this event store pushing all this stuff over. So it's going. I got the registration stuff done in Azure, and now I'm focusing on all the other operations for actually fulfilling an order, post applicant registering, and then administration accepting or rejecting the applicant, and that ceremony being pushed to the application status the next time that the applicant launches the courier app to see if they've been accepted or rejected. To if they've been accepted, they have a welcome, and then they're able to look at their home screen. But then it crashes because of feature toggles not being migrated over. So I worked on that this morning. I'm not sure if it works, but I finished the first version of the Azure Storage Table support for it. Mr. Radius, I don't know how to say that thing. 86. Hi, Bismonger and Shine. Hi.
I'm
So
looking at the code you posted this morning on Twitter. Yeah, an hour ago.
I do it for free code reviews without telling them.
Gotcha. I'm kind of laughing at it because I've written these exact lines of code in C# a million times. So
Is it shorter, longer, the same amount of lines of code?
um, I'm having to parse it into C#. So the bit where where you're doing the joining and pulling of features and stuff like that. Um, that I usually push off to a service, so or a command or query or something. But it's about the same in terms of just lines of code.
The second image is a service.
Oh, the second is the server. Okay, that's what I was. Okay, so enabled versus. So this must be your. So the first one is your controller action. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's about the same. So I'll have like a. It's definitely more verbose in terms of like. So features is the endpoint, I'm assuming then.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there'd be decoration on that, and it'd be returning task of I action result or whatever action result, and then that would be decorated with async. And then the try, I haven't used try catches around those very much because I assume that the service is going to catch its things, and the rest of the code that I write in there is usually not error prone. So, but the one case that courier ID. So I the only thing that is kind of different usually is in this case if I'm getting a resource and so the courier itself is a feature, or is this, what are you feature toggling?
Hold up, are you looking at the client or you're looking at the server code? So are you looking at the module enabled or the
enabled? Yeah,
module query?
Module enabled. Oh, so this is your client code.
Yeah. The module enabled is the mobile code, and then the server is the module query. So, I mean, they're on two different repos. I just took a snapshot of each one.
Okay, so the courier feature toggle is, in this case, is this courier enabled?
Maybe I should share my screen in case someone is viewing it. So, all right, let me go back. So you were saying you're looking at the enable module? Okay, what about it?
Oh, it caught me a little off guard with the courier ID being passed in. I guess it depends on what it's actually toggling. Does it toggle on specific features?
No.
Based on courier, or
my coding style is you look at the module and then you look at the function, and the code that I write is usually the module name and then the function. So I'll have enabled features and then I'll pass in a courier ID, and it's going to return me the features that are enabled for that particular courier.
Okay.
So I'm not toggling anything. I'm getting the permissions of what the courier has access to that might be work in progress. And then from there, the next lines of code that's not in the snapshot would be me toggling those features on for within the mobile app for that courier to observe.
Yeah. So this is more of a features, or not a feature toggle, but a permissions endpoint then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what caught me a little off guard, because normally when I think of like feature toggling and feature enablement, it's more of like a global or an A/B testing type thing, where you're enabling some features for these users or not, or you might be wanting to put in a feature that you don't want to make live right away.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, but this is the precursor for the client. Hey, what features do I have enabled? And then it makes a service request to give him that response or the result of what features that specific courier ID has, and then it'll go ahead and enable those on the client. Have some conditions like if this feature was returned, then enable it. Else, if that feature was returned, then enable that. And
is this used for A/B testing then, or is it used for permissions?
It's used to snap it on my resume. It's all political for right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, in the app, I was curious.
So in the app, the specific scenario for a feature toggle right now is for transaction history. So what happens is a courier will look at their payroll or their expected pay, or they'll review what they've been paid and the transactions that are associated to that particular payment. And then they could look at the history. That history is going to show their actual route along with the actual delivery context or for that particular route for each customer that they did a delivery for. So you will literally see a Google map for every single transaction of the route that they took. But that's work in progress. But I would enable that feature for myself and maybe for the first two couriers that I get on my team. And once that's tried and tested and working, then I will release it to all the other couriers.
Okay.
So that was the thought process.
All right. Yeah. So it is a feature toggle. It's just it's not global. It's per user. So you're whitelisting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I was if we were, let's say, on a team working on this, the nomenclature without hearing the thing would have confused me, but that's just because of historical ways that I've used feature toggles have been more broad. But this makes sense because you're doing feature toggling at a user level versus at a global level. So,
well, what's the point of doing a feature toggle at a global level? That's the same thing as a Big Bang release or a Canary release. No, I might be butchering my terms.
what's the point of doing it at the?
Yeah, if you make a release available for everybody, like, aren't there still challenges? So I understand that. Well, it's work in progress. You don't have to deal with creating branches. You just have the feature turned off until it's been tested by QA, which I don't believe should be the last line of defense. And then once QA provides their blessings, then it sounds like your global toggle or your global scope feature toggle being enabled is Big Bang. Everybody sees it. Versus the gradual experimental, this is a whitelist for these specific users to observe, and then after I receive their blessings and they don't report any funky behavior, then either gradually release it at a wider scope or just Big Bang it or to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, the Big Bang it to everyone else. I mean, I've used it before to push. So if you're doing like trunk-based development and you have a lot of a big multi-step feature and you've got maybe a lot of dependencies with other teams or something like that, where you want to get your code in and get it so we can toggle it on right away, instead of keeping it in a feature branch over the course of so long and then merging it with everyone else and trying to organize that. You can kind of use feature toggling as a branching, almost as an alternative to branching strategies, right? Also, I guess it you might have tested it well and you assume QA or maybe tested it well if you've got them, and you push it out and you find something's wrong and you wanted the capability to shut it off. The other thing could be too is delayed or timed releases, right? Where you don't necessarily want to release the code to release the feature today, but you want to get the code out there and prepared for it. So when you flip the toggle, everyone just has it. So I'm thinking of something like in the game that I play, League of Legends, I see that they'll do code updates ahead of certain things. Like I'll get the update patcher, but there doesn't seem to be any feature changes. And then suddenly a few days later, pop, everything turns on. Fairly certain that they're feature toggling, but I can't. That's just me putting, observing what's happening and putting my own spin on it. So that might not be at all what's going on. They might be pushing small amounts of code out. So.
One thing that I will say, which is deviating from this specific topic of feature toggles, is I went from believing that if you're going to be persisting data, then thou shalt have a relational database, to now it's like I literally I go out my way to for lack of a better term, I can't figure out the promote the reason why I should have a relational database, right? And so outside of reporting, right, where I'm crunching information and passing it to people that need to make informative decisions. Uh, just within the last probably 3 months, my whole mentality has shifted when it comes to storing data. So, and it carries not just on like this passion project, but also at work too. I challenge people hard on using any type of like relational database, period, whether it's SQLite or it running on the server, SQL Server, just because yeah, it works and most people are familiar with it, but it's just so much overhead and it's like I don't know. I'm just very like gun ho on just key value pairs, period.
Yeah. Well, I think that having key value pairs is more often the solution than not. But I almost feel like sometimes you have to have a combination of both. But they're different things. It's to do relations matter, and the other thing is does querying the data or subparts of the data matter? That's another thing that I think matters. Like you
Yeah.
said, for reporting and stuff like that, because NoSQL or key value pair data drops. That's a lot harder to query than a relational database. You also can't maintain data. You can't enforce certain constraints on data integrity, can you? In the database, you can in the app, but the app could change. So there's reasons why, but there's reasons why you'd use a graph database too. There's reasons why you'd use flat files, probably. I mean, it's like the tool for the tool, the thing. But the good thing about it is that about opening it up is that there really is no one right answer to every scenario. So it's definitely worth challenging. Should we use a relationship database here? Because there's cases now where I'm like, God, I wish I didn't have to use a relational database with this. All I'm doing is getting the entire object graph, modifying it, putting it back, or
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing.
Yeah,
It was the same thing with this feature toggles. So like that server part that you were looking at. Let me go back. Share screen and then share screen and then click that and then go to my Twitter and then go over here. So this this query module features function, like that's operating off of it's a client to SQL Server, right? This is using F# type providers.
mm-hmm.
And so like yeah, when I was creating the table, when I was creating the tables and establishing the foreign key relationships and all that stuff, I mean, it's fine. It works. It's just overkill for what I need. And like, that took me probably like, because I'm me and I don't spend a lot of time in SQL Server, I mean, it took me about probably half an hour to do that exercise. And then like another 20 minutes to write this function right here. It probably would have took half the time for me just relying on the key value store. So yeah, stop sharing.
So yeah. I mean, I there's multiple ways to do it. Some of the key value stores, some of the NoSQL databases do have querying capabilities, right? I haven't used much of Mongo or all the other ones. I've used some of it, just not for enough to be fluent in it.
So for Azure storage tables, like this is me rehearsing for an interview, right?
Yeah. Tell me about your experience with Azure storage tables.
There's this notion of a partition key and a row key.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be, the combination of them both is going to be a unique identifier. So your partition key, I would say, is analogous to a table name. And then your row key is like your primary key, that your ID for whatever widget
Mhm.
That's going to uniquely identify it. So I have a F sharp interview next next Thursday, I think. So it's good for me to go in detail about this stuff.
Cool. Did that other interview you had just fizzle then? The one with the
No,
company where,
this is
or is
second
that
round.
second one?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I'm getting flown in. So
Good. Good luck. Because this is the one where you're like, I really respect the company and I want
yeah,
to work with them. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure if I do get hired, which I'm usually a pessimist, I feel like companies find a reason not to hire me, and then they won't disclose why.
Yeah.
Um, but if I do get hired, I'm sure I'll probably have imposter syndrome probably for the first 8 weeks, and then
Then it'll
that's
kick in and be like, you all suck. You're not doing it right. No, just kidding.
uh, probably not for them. Because I mean, honestly, and maybe you've observed something similar, is like depending on the technology, it's going to attract certain people that are competent in it, right? And if they're competent in that particular technology, that kind of constrains the way that you're supposed to use it or think about it. I feel like it kind of heightens the standards of the people that you'll be working with. So, I mean, so for example, I've I've only worked on one F sharp project with an F sharp team. So it's not probably fair for me to make a statement, but I feel like they were just very disciplined, and I didn't have to argue about automated tests like I have to do 90% of C sharp shops. Right? They understood that that wasn't an option. I mean, they were pragmatic, but they knew that, yeah, starting out, we're going done, or acceptance criteria is like we write a test. We might delete that test later, you know, months from now, but right now it's like that's part of the acceptance criteria. You provide enough credible evidence that that feature is has been completed. You know, one would argue
Mhm.
that it's not really completed until it's monitored in production. But like, you don't know how many shops I argue with to do the right thing. Like, so you're not going to have any automated tests for this brand new feature. We're not talking about something legacy that we did a bug fix for. A brand new feature, you don't want to have any tests for whatsoever. And then they label me a hard person to work with. So, all right, I'm done.
Yeah. My I'm still struggling with the idea of tests being worth it. I mean, not automated. Some automated tests is not. I don't know. I feel like it's worth it for stuff that isn't hit all the time, but I feel like a lot of waste is put into testing too. In terms of what if the feature's wrong and you've written a bunch of tests around it, wrong from a requirement standpoint, which happens all the time.
This is true, right? But if you take into consideration the I'll just call it a bug database,
Mm-hmm.
and more than likely it's probably lengthy because I think everybody's bug database is lengthy. Is it? Would you still make that argument? And in addition to that, that's saying that you never ever see the same bugs again after they get fixed. You know, if that latter part is true, then I could probably understand that. But I've worked in shops where like a bug was fixed and then it gets fixed two more times within the next like 4 months. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I mean
why don't
that.
you just write a test for that? Period.
Yeah,
So
that happens. But I mean, why did the bug happen again? It could be that they rewrote the module or something like that, and it had different requirements that didn't account for that. I don't know, or the test didn't translate well. I can see reasons why it could go that route. I guess you have to know what I wish. Just maybe the trick for me is that if we wouldn't have called it tests, that might be the the indicator for me. Like if if test was the test part of it was thought of as more of a side effect. Because I think of it more as like, if I think about it in terms of I'm writing documentation about assumptions I made that aren't obvious, that changes the whole game for me, because I'll do that. But I don't know, like getting to maybe it's just people, maybe just the testing that I see just isn't, or that I've experienced or been a part of isn't, maybe it's just not done correctly. I don't know, or at the right level. So yeah, I don't know, but I swear I'm never going to test again that if the database throws an error, then it returns an error. Like, it's just going to return an error anytime that a thing's going to return an error. I'm following error paths and stuff, but documenting like a business thing or an assumption that I made that's not obvious, or how to use something, that's a little bit different.
Would you feel any different if it were for a trading platform or for a rocket launch system? Or you still maintain the same philosophy?
Well, see, theirs is, it's those are more mission and safety critical stuff. So for instance, let's say your bug backlog's big, right? But maybe those bugs don't crop up too often. They're extreme edge cases, or edge cases. They're hit once every year, maybe, and they don't cause any harm. But then, so say I either wrote a test. Maybe it's a complicated thing to test. I wrote a test right away for it, or the bug happened and then we wrote a test on it after it was documented and we fixed it. The test, let's just say, if that takes an hour to write or something like that, or the tests to set up and everything, and then assuming that it would have caught it in the first place, the test can only catch things that you know about, right? I think other things like using functional techniques and stuff help with actually ensuring stuff just won't fail for no reason. But that time you spent doing that testing and everything like that might have just been better working on a feature that gives you $1 million more in revenue a year. You know what I mean? Versus spending even 30 minutes on something that doesn't have any revenue impact other than maybe a few dollars worth of people's time to take the support call.
I think it's common for people to believe that tests don't require engineering effort. I think there's plenty of people that believe that when you write a test, you're writing a test that's tightly coupled to the code that you're testing. And logically, I can understand why people would think that. But if tests is code, and tests can have technical debt just like code can have technical debt, and if tests is meant to serve as documentation for the current requirements, now I think that there needs to be thought, effort, and engineering discipline in writing the test as well. And I think that's where a lot of people run into issues, because they're tightly coupling their system under test to the automated test itself. And then when requirements change or a new feature is introduced that changes the old ways of doing things, then all that testing infrastructure, not all of it, but a significant part, is rendered obsolete or too expensive to maintain. And I just think that there's probably a missing skill set that people probably could take advantage of in order to minimize that.
So, yeah, it's just maybe a skill that I haven't mastered yet, and so I am skeptical of the value of it. I don't know. There is there is documentation
I'm
on.
practicing all my interview
Yeah.
statements on you.
I mean, there is documentation on effectiveness of testing techniques and stuff like that on defect removal, and unit testing and acceptance testing are very, very little overall, are don't have great track records of defect removal, you know, or discovery rather early in the phase. I mean, wild usage does a great job of finding and resolving defects more than upfront testing or unit testing, right?
Um,
Beta
I,
testing.
I think it depends on what stage, right? You have people that are disciplined, that are within object-oriented technologies that are doing test-driven development. And I would say that I think that their approach decreases bugs. I do. Are there still bugs in the code? Yeah. Can automated tests or specifically unit tests satisfy every single bug that was found? For lack of a better term, no. Right? Can integration tests do it? Yeah. Well, are some integration tests worth writing? No. Like, I'm not going to write a UI test that's extremely slow and takes 30 seconds to execute to make sure that a button shows up in the upper left-hand corner. But I'm not doing that. Why? What's the probability of it shifting? I would say very low. And if it does shift, well, someone would notice and it won't take anything to put it back. So, I mean, I might agree with you on that. Something that I have found useful, and I stated it earlier, is like I take snapshots of my code and I'll post it on Twitter. And even today, I posted it and then I saw something wrong with it. And then I deleted the post. And then I corrected the code. And then I reposted it. So I guess to summarize, I find that it's easier for me to find issues with the code, even if they're cosmetic, if I plan for other people to formally observe it. And I become more critical of it because now it's like I want people to think I'm smart. So let me look at this a little bit closer before I show it. And it almost always catch something before I post it on Twitter.
Yeah, formal code inspections actually has a really good track record of not informal but formal code inspections is a good track record of defect removal. Like if you look at this, specifically like code complete and stuff like that, and the graphs that they use and the data that they use, but no, I do the same thing actually. I was telling one of the junior developers that I work with is when you post a pull request, be the first person to review your own PR. So actually post it and then go through every single module or every single change you made and verify that it's everything that you expect to be there and nothing you didn't expect to be there, and that, you know, try to dissociate the fact that you just developed it and just try to look at it from a different perspective.
Now here's the thing that's kind of like an oxymoron, and I'm sure you've probably been through the same thing, where they're like, "Hey, Scott, can you review my code?" Says the boss, right, or your supervisor, and you look at it, and it's like a 300-line method, and like the real me will be like, "I'm not even going to look at this." I would shove it back, but because this person has certain influences over you, you still do a code review, but you have to be very careful how you articulate the effed up code that they gave you, right? And so, like, I mean, this is happening to me more and more because I guess when the deadline is looming, like people just want to get it done. But I question, like, okay, what type of code review are you looking for? Are you looking for, oh, Scott Nimrod reviewed this, so it's okay? And I could tell people that, you know, if there's any issues, Scott Nimrod reviewed it, so maybe we should question him. Like, it's kind of like very political where, like, you're asking me to review it, but if I stamp my approval on it and there's issues in production, then people are going to think twice about my quote unquote expertise and the rate that they're paying me, right? But the code is effed up. I mean, I think I know what the answer is. Just somehow create an artifact that documents you're concerned about the code, but appease them and just say, okay, I reviewed it. Here's my thoughts about things, even though I know that we have a deadline looming and we need to get things done. I mean, that happened to me like last week, but I didn't do a formal document. I feel like that would probably hurt me too, especially if it's my supervisor.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting more of the opinion that of just like if there's no defect, if you're not introducing a defect, you're not introducing a security flaw or anything like that, you're not introducing performance issues or anything, and you're fulfilling the needs of the feature, like anything else, I've just stopped caring so much about. Not caring, but depends on what state the project's in and everything like that. Because like right now, for instance, I developed something really quick, because the point was of developing this was we were having meetings with like 4 or 5 people, and they were just trying to understand the flow, and everyone was getting confused and nobody knew how to talk about it. And I knew exactly what was going on, and I could see the solution in my head. And I'm like, the only thing I don't know is that it's exactly what the product owner thinks it's going to be, or thinks what they want, because they know what they want in their head, but to communicate that in terms of flows and stuff like that is really difficult. So we were wasting 5-6 people's time in hour-long meetings to try to discuss this. I'm like, look, I'll just build this, we'll get it out there, we'll validate with you. This isn't in production yet, or it could have been feature toggled if it was. We'll validate with you, then we can make a second pass to make it all good. And based on whoever's, because I was going to cross boundaries into another team to do the work, and I got the code up really fast, 2 days later or less, to get this up. Boom, this works. It works. And then it was like, well, I think it should work like this.
Yeah.
And but there's no bug. There's no, and it's around a security part of the system. So there's no security flaw. In fact, I know there's not, because I solved the one that I introduced originally. I looked at it, I tested it, I verified there was, I fixed that. And then I showed them, I'm like, I'd rather use, instead of rewriting it right now, let's get it pushed out and go and validate, because that's the point of this, because we might have this all wrong. And how about you spend the time you would to do this to fix this other security flaw that I found over here that's unrelated, but it's the same problem that I would have had. That's an actual security problem. This isn't. And it was like, and then I got silence for a while, and then it was, well, we have time to fix it. We don't want to take on technical debt. It's not technical debt. I did expect that I didn't write any unit tests. I did expect for them to ask me to write those, but that's not the ask I got. Was that we don't like this. We want to do it like this.
If it's under a feature toggle, I would argue that it's not technical debt. It's an experiment.
Yeah, and the whole thing was an experiment, but it's not really. It wouldn't have been under a feature toggle. But the thing is, our code's not live yet. Everything's a feature toggle. We could just not turn the whole site on. The whole site is toggled off right now for everyone.
I think their argument is, hey, this doesn't necessarily fit into my vision of how I imagine the code base to be configured, and this is adding to my personal cognitive load. And because I'm the visionary, I really would appreciate if things would fit into the code base through my vision. And like,
yeah. And that I said that's okay. But my telling them was, do it on your own time.
Yeah. I
agree. Want to get this out now so I can verify that we got the requirements of the product owner correct.
It's the same thing that probably not that extreme, but like, you have all these moving parts, right? And then you have this God class that I was told about. And this God class is about 3,000 lines, right? And it's like, Scott, we don't need, globals or managers or singletons, just shove this in the state class. And I'm like, okay, well, there's some ceremony for me to do this. In the state class, it's like thousands of lines of code. This is a God class. What really is the difference, right? And so, like, kind of similar to you, it's okay, the deadline is on whatever day. I need to get this done. So instead of me trying to figure out how to access this specific instance within all these different objects that make up what we call the system, I'm just going to create another singleton, right? Within the whatever class that I need I need access to within the constructor. I'm going to assign the singleton to class.this or instance of that class.this, and then I can refer to it anywhere. And like, if you really care about the ceremony of how we retrieve this value, then we can visit that another time. Right now, we just need to get this visible for a demo. And like, the code base is already effed up. So like, why does it matter right now? Like, I don't care if I have singletons throughout the whole code base. We don't even have any tests. So it's like, if we had a whole bunch of automated tests, then yeah, I'll kind of argue against it. But we're beyond that point now, right? If something is already ugly, do we really have an issue with making it uglier? Seriously, like, unless we have a documented plan of how we're going to pay back this debt, it's already a pig. So like, why am I trying to put lipstick on it? It is what it is. Of course, I didn't tell him that.
Yeah. But yeah. So it's just the whole thing of there is a time to make things, work the way that your vision is, and then there's times to push to just as long as it works and isn't going to cause a defect or security or any of these other problems, let it through. And what bothered me about it is the fact that I worked on this because they didn't have the time to work on it. And suddenly they have the time to work on it. But I don't know. It's just like, look, I got this working. Let's get this out there. You would have had to do this work yourself. Otherwise, just go and take that time that you would have had to do and clean it up, but not now. Just wait until we can get it out. Because now, if any of that, if they do not like the way that it was put together, if it doesn't actually meet the requirements, or they want it to do it any different, all that time could be entirely wasted. And that bothers me.
The argument is, what's the probability that they're going to have time to clean it up when there's still a product backlog full of
the thing is this
fixes and other features?
Yeah, this was on their backlog to do, so they have time slotted out. They just didn't have time to do it now, and we were wasting time in meetings trying to figure out what it would be. but that more pragmatic reason to get this out right away. Now they did get it, the code done. I think it was 3 days later. Well, it was 4 days later now because I had it last week. But now I have to go refactor our side of it to match up with what they have. And then I have to re-verify the whole thing because I'm not going to trust that they're going to do that. So it's like, fuck, we could have had this out last week. And actually, I wanted it out last week. But it turned out that the product owner was out for different reasons this week. And so we wouldn't have been able to verify it anyways. But it still doesn't change the fact that if he was in, I would have been sitting here with my thumbs twiddling when I wanted to get this verified and done, and then they can fix it, or I can make the fixes according to what it is. So I think at one point in time it was like, we don't want to bring anything into master that's technical debt or whatever. Okay. And I'm like, or anything that's just not up to their standards or whatever. And it's like, you realize that we're not in production yet. Like, nobody is using this site outside of internal users. This doesn't break anything. That I'd understand if you're like, this causes this bug, or this will crash the system because of this. That's not the case. It was just, I want it to work like this. Okay, well, I'll put some more work on me now. And
Yeah.
frustrated.
I had a project, I think, like 8 months ago, and it was just me and the CTO. I don't know if I told you this. I think I did. And like, it was just us two, and it was a greenfield project. There's nothing in production because it was being built. And like, so my workflow is I check in, like, I write some working code that compiles, and I feel reasonably good that it's pretty solid. Even if it's just a function, I check it in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do check-ins like probably 4 times an hour. His workflow is pull request, and he may be able to get to it maybe within a day or two. And it was just I couldn't understand why he had so much oversight over something that wasn't in production. I'm the only developer on it, but he wanted me to like formally submit every single code for him to review. And like it didn't work out. I mean, we never argued or anything. It's just our workflows were just very different,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if he changed his tune or not. He probably didn't. But I know for a fact that it's going to take forever for anything to get done based on the workflow that he currently uses.
Yeah. Honestly, unless it's formal code inspections, I feel like a lot of time, I'm starting to just come around to the fact that a lot of time is wasted in waiting for and waiting on and doing pull requests. Mostly because unless somebody actually commits to really inspecting it and doing a good job with the code review and not just rubber stamping, it's just friction for the sake of friction.
It's just ceremony. It's people practicing a religion wearing funny costumes. That's all it is.
The only thing it does is catch obvious, very, very obvious bugs. Or we spend time quibbling about, well, I think this name should be different because I don't understand what this is. Well, I mean, that could be the exact same thing of what we just talked about at the start of this, the feature to features. Well, to me, features means this, but to you, why is the courier ID? And blah, 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 blah. So I guess there's the chance for conversation, but that I don't think that conversation needs to happen. As long as the code works and they verified it, I don't know. The thing is, we always have a chance to change it, refactor it, make it better later. But the business doesn't necessarily have a chance to make another $1 million, in profit next week. It could be the difference,
Here's it's all related, right? So the difference is people are reluctant to continuously clean up code while adhering to some type of Git flow strategy, right? So So if your task is to work on feature A, and you do a pull request, and you have 6 other files that are unrelated to that feature, then there's going to be time wasted on, I don't understand why you did this. This is not within the scope of what we asked you to do, right?
Yeah. Can you put this in a different pull request? I've gotten that one before, and it's like, no. The
policy is effed up, right? If you want to clean up the code base, then honestly, I don't even think you allocate time to do it unless it's something that's significant. You continuously clean things up. You continuously rename things for clarity. You continuously delete code that is no longer relevant. You just keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. And you'll receive notifications from someone that is bothered by what you do, like within like half an hour, because everybody's pulling from the same branch. And you remember what you just did. I'm done venting.
I wonder if
these people went to college. They 4 or 5 years.
I just think it'd actually be a really, really cool feature of a pull request system to actually allow you to flag or tag specific chunks of code as like feature critical code, or tag certain things as these are done for tech. Because I've done in the top of the in tops of things, like I'll have, let's say I had 30 files updated, and it's because I changed the name of something, and now the references are all across 30 files are all hosed. I mean, I'll try to call out the fact that the important code that you want to look at is in these 5 files, not the other 30. The other ones, just scan them to make sure that this was the change, or it was rename, or whatever, or whatever. But it would be kind of cool to be able to provide more context. Now I do that when I go through, I'll add comments, but then it's not part of the reviewing process necessarily, because it only if they happen upon the comment. It would be nice to actually segment files or segment chunks of code into buckets to
or you can do something similar to what we're doing right now, and you can ping someone and say, hey, are you available for a call? And they say, yeah, call me. And then you share your desktop, like, all right, I already checked in these files, but let me tell you what I did. And then you just methodically show the stuff that matters. And subconsciously, they're going to say, oh, that name is confusing. Oh, that. And you just get your code review / pair programming for the second iteration of that code right then and there without all this BS ceremony. So, I mean, that's part of my practice. I check in code. It's already in the code base. Hey, this is what I made. And then make slight updates. Or if you want to rip it out, all right, we can rip it out. But always check in code first. And then ask them to review it second.
Yeah, this is maybe did we discuss pair programming at some point in time?
No.
Because maybe this is a discussion for another time, because we only got a few minutes left. But I think it was Uncle Bob posted something about if you're not learning how to pair with people, you're being left in the dust or something like that. And I'm just completely bewildered by this push to say that pair programming is the be all end all of of successful coding practice or something like that.
I think peer review can be very beneficial, but I don't think peer review, and maybe that's something I just coined, right? But I don't necessarily believe in pair programming, maybe because I've never done it on a greenfield project where I'm consistently holding someone's hand writing code. But I'm used to writing code or doing pair programming on a bug fix that I need some clarity on. But just mob programming, pair programming, where you literally have this formal partnership that you guys are just going to write I don't know. Maybe there's things that they're familiar with, that they're in tune with, that I just haven't had the opportunity to deal with or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I've never had a great experience pair programming, and I don't know why that is, but it's just not something that it's difficult for me personally to slow down to the level of another person, or speed up to a level of another person, like to get on a cadence at the same time with someone, because I'm thinking about shit just in all sorts of directions when I'm developing and permutating, oh, what if I do this or this or this, or what if I write it like this, or if I go like this. I'm constantly thinking through all these options, and if I'm spewing that to someone, they're just getting lost.
Yeah, are you assuming that the person that you're programming with is at your level of competency or higher, or does this also include junior developers?
Well, that's the thing, is that I don't want to say that they're not at the level of competency. Maybe the experience is a better term, but it might also just be the way that it's just different development practices. But like I said, I think a very fast pace, and I'll have constantly, when I'm talking to someone or trying to walk them through ideas, I'm told to slow down or stop or hold on, or
Oh yeah.
And it's but to do that and to try to do it while you're pairing, like I'll change names and stuff all the time while I'm developing. I'll try to refine. I might even restructure complete chunks of code all the time. But it's like if I'm watching someone else do it, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Zootopia.
That sounds
It's an
familiar.
animated.
Adam. No, you said it's an animated movie. No.
Yeah. So that not Zoolander, but so there's a scene where they go to the DMV and all the DMV workers are sloths, and the this bunny cop who's trying to get a license plate run, is talking to the sloth, and she's like, I need this license plate, and it's like she's repeating the license plate, and it's like Z10508, and the guy's like Z, and she's like 1508, and he's like 1 508, and then she nearly gets to the end, and then he's like 8, and he's about to push it, and the other guy goes like, hey, you want to hear a joke? And she's like, no. But that's how I feel the experience is half the time, because I'm thinking, many steps ahead, and to slow down to just wait for the typing action and to get done based on the communication. I feel like if I could just do this myself, I'll get it done so much faster. If I could see the solution.
I think it depends on people that you gel with.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess certain people subscribe to certain things that works for them. But when I'm mentoring, and this is another conversation, like I do pair programming, right? But I only do pair programming a lot when I'm fixing bugs that I don't fully understand what the resolution should be.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think of, so pair programming may be the mode, but I don't think of it pair programming if you're teaching someone. That's teaching. You know what I mean? In most likely cases, you've actually solved the problem then, and now you're just explaining to them why and how to solve the problem, and correcting them as they're going on mistakes they may make in logic or whatever, or just because of the fact that they're being watched while someone else is, being watched while they're typing, which everyone falls apart on. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't like the term pair programming when you have people that are at different levels and you're just using it for knowledge share or whatever. So,
all right. In summary,
anyways, yeah.
Did you find anything to work on?
Not really. I started trying down a couple little projects, but I just lost interest immediately. So I'm still just waiting for something to spark interest. It's just not there.
I plan on having by next Friday a delivery request coming in that's connected to Azure backend. And that's all I'm going to try to accomplish. I mean, I'm going to try to accomplish more, but that's all I'm going to declare that I'm going to have done. So
you're scoping correctly. You can get that done. I believe in you.
It's just refactoring hella things that, whatever. I've learned a lot, and I feel like if I didn't do all this, then I wouldn't have the interview at this company that I look forward to working for. So
yeah, so it might be paying off then 1 year later. So
yeah. All right,
cool.
Sean. Have
a good one. Bye.
Thanks. See ya. And whoever's viewing. Bye.